I hid an alien for 3 days, and he told me the real reason they weren't contacting us. And when you hear his answer, you'll realize something disturbing. The responsibility may be closer to you than you think. What he revealed isn't what conspiracy theories say. It's not what governments admit. It's something much deeper, something that will make you question every choice you make daily. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea, or just some water and sit back as we begin this journey together. Victor Hayes was on the porch of his cabin in the mountains of Asheville when he heard the helicopters. Three of them flying low, searchlights cutting through the night, systematic search pattern, 52 years old, retired history teacher, burnout at 49 after 28 years of teaching, divorced for 7 years, adult daughter who barely spoke to him. Victor lived alone for 3 years in that isolated cabin, a deliberate choice away from people, away from disappointment. He watched the helicopters with distant curiosity, military by the shape of them, looking for something. Drugs probably, he thought, clandestine plantation in the mountains. He was about to enter when he heard it, moist in the backyard, something moving among the trees. Victor grabbed a flashlight and stepped down from the porch. His heart raced slightly, not from fear, more from caution. "Who's there?" he called, shining his flashlight. Nothing, but there was definitely something. He could hear breathing, irregular gasping. Victor walked a few more steps, and then he saw it. Figure crouching behind a pile of firewood, trying to hide, but the format was wrong. "Get out of there," Victor said, his voice firm. Now the figure moved. It rose slowly, and in the flashlight's light, Victor saw it. It wasn't human. Grayish skin, a large, disproportionate head, long, thin limbs, huge eyes completely black, that reflected the flashlight like mirrors. Victor dropped the flashlight. It rolled on the floor, light spinning. "That's not, you're not helicopters approaching." Sound getting louder, searchlights sweeping the area closer and closer. The creature looked at Victor, then at the sky, then back at Victor, and even without words, the message was clear. "They're looking for me. Please." Victor stood still, his brain trying to process the impossibility. Every neuron screaming that this couldn't be real. But it was. It was there. A real alien trembling with fear exhaustion. Helicopters less than a kilometer away now. Victor made a decision in seconds. Not thought out, instinctive. "Basement," he said, gesturing. "Quick through the trap door in the kitchen." The creature hesitated only a moment. Then it continued. Victor led her into the cabin through the kitchen and opened a trap door in the floor. The stairs led down to the small basement where he kept tools and supplies. "Get down. Be quiet. Don't make any noise." The creature descended. Victor closed the trap door and covered it with a rug. 30 seconds later, a spotlight illuminated the cabin's windows. Loud knock on the door. Victor opened it. Two soldiers' uniforms without insignia, hard expressions. "Good evening, sir. Security operation in the area. Have you seen anything unusual?" "Strange lights, suspicious movement." "No," Victor lied with surprising ease. "I heard helicopters, but I didn't see anything." "Can we verify ownership? Do you have a warrant?" Tennis silence. The soldier studied Victor. Victor held his gaze. "No, sir, but cooperation would be appreciated." "Then no. Good night." Victor closed the door, heart pounding, now adrenaline finally kicking in. "What did I just do? I lied to the military. I hid. I hid. Alien." He waited. He heard helicopters circling for another 20 minutes. Then slowly the sound faded, moving to another area. Victor waited another 30 minutes, making sure they had really gone. Then he opened the trap door. The creature sat on the basement floor looking up, those impossible eyes fixed on Victor. "They're gone," Victor said, not sure if the creature understood. For now, the creature nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. Do you understand what I'm saying? Another no. He can talk. The creature opened its mouth, small, lipless, indeed, but no sound came out. Then it shook its head. Okay, okay. Victor went down the stairs. He sat on an old box, keeping his distance. So what are you? Where did you come from? Why are the military hunting you? The creature just stared. No response. Right. Communication will be challenging. Victor ran a hand through his gray hair. He was a history teacher for nearly 3 decades. He taught about ancient civilizations, world wars, revolutions. He thought he had seen it all through books. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for this. Are you hurt? He asked, noticing dark spots on what appeared to be the creature's side. She touched her chest, grimaced, or what Victor interpreted as a grimace. Wait here, I'll get the first aid kit. And I don't know water. Do you drink water? The creature made a gesture that Victor interpreted as, yes, please. As he climbed the stairs, Victor looked back one last time. Alien real in your basement. Life in self-imposed isolation had just gotten much, much more complicated. But also, for the first time in 3 years, Victor felt something other than cynicism and resignation. Curiosity, genuine burning. Who are you? Where do you come from? What do you know? And in the next 3 days, these questions would have answers. Answers that would destroy everything Victor thought he knew about humanity and about yourself. Victor returned to the basement with a first aid kit, a bottle of water, and an old blanket. The creature was exactly where he'd left it, motionless, just those huge eyes following every movement. Okay. Victor walked slowly down the stairs. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never treated whatever you are, but I'll try. He approached cautiously. The creature didn't back away. It just watched. Victor pointed to dark spots on her chest. Can I see? The creature hesitated. Then it raised what appeared to be an arm, allowing access. Victor examined it. It wasn't exactly blood, a darker, viscous liquid. The wound looked like a burn, a cut. Hard to tell in alien physiology. He cleaned it carefully with gauze. The creature shuddered but didn't resist. This is going to burn. Victor applied antiseptic. The creature made a sound, not vocal exactly, but a low vibration that Victor felt in his chest. Sorry, almost done, Steen. He covered the wound with clean gauze and secured it with tape. Improvised but functional work. Water. Victor offered a bottle. The creature took it, 3 long fingers holding the bottle with surprising care, and drank. Small sips as if testing. Victor sat on the toolbox, keeping a respectful distance. So how long do you need to stay here? Hours, days? The creature held up fingers. 3 days. I nodded in confirmation. Victor ran a hand over his face. 3 days. Okay, I can do 3 days. He looked around the basement. Small damp filled with old boxes and rusty tools. It's not the best, but it's hidden. Military personnel have already checked the area. They probably won't be back anytime soon. The creature inclined its head, a curious gesture, almost grateful. Are you hungry? I don't know what your species eats, but I have sandwich corned beef. The creature made a negative gesture. Just water then. Okay. An uncomfortable silence. Victor realized he was sitting in a basement with an alien and had no idea what to say. A teacher for 28 years. I always knew what to say, but this I see, finally pointing to himself. Viker, the creature looked. Then he touched his own chest, and Victor heard, not with his ears, but in his mind, like a thought that wasn't his. Zell. Victor almost fell out of the box. You're in my head. Sorry, only way to communicate. Vocal sound doesn't work for me on this planet. Telepathic. Sure. Why not? Victor laughed nervously. So Zell, you're Zell to try. And you came from where exactly? Very far away. A system that you don't have a name for yet. How far in your measurements? Approximately 40 light years. Victor processed. 40. You traveled 40 light years to get here. It doesn't take 40 years. A ship folds space. But yes, that's the distance. And you crashed? Did you fall? That's why the military I didn't. I didn't crash. I was shot down, drowned. Victor stood up. Did the military deliberately shoot you down? Yes. They detected my ship. They fired. Defense system damaged. I had to make an emergency landing. Why would they attack you without Victor stop? Because he knew why. Of course he did. He taught history. He taught about fear of the unknown, about how civilizations reacted to perceived threats. Shoot first, ask questions later, he thought bitterly. Exactly, Zell responded to the unspoken thought. Can you read everything in my mind? Not everything, just what you transmit most strongly. Superficial thoughts, intense emotions. Great. No mental privacy. Victor sat down again. What now? You wait 3 days, and then what? Ship repairs itself partially. Enough to signal rescue. My people will come get me. And then you leave, and I'm left here with the memory of the 3 craziest days of my life. Yes. Unless what? Unless you want to know more, ask questions. I have 3 days and I owe you. The creature had noticed his curiosity. Victor stared at the impossible creature in his basement. Part of him wanted to refuse, keep his distance, just wait for 3 days to pass. But another part, the part that had been a teacher that had lived to learn, was screaming with curiosity. Questions, he repeated. About what about anything, you, us, universe? I answer what I can. Victor thought, where to begin? He had a million questions. Okay, first, why are you here, you, your species? Why do you visit Earth observation? Study. Your species is in an interesting moment. Interesting how? Crossroads can evolve or self-destruct. Outcome still uncertain. Victor felt a shiver. And what's your bet? Shall we evolve or blow everything up? I don't know yet. That's why I'm watching. How many how many of you watching? Many from various civilizations. Earth is a fascinating case. Case, Victor laughed humorously. We're a cosmic laboratory experiment. No experiment observation, no interference, just attention. No interference, but you appear. Ship sightings. Isn't that interference? No direct interference. We do not change the course of events. We just observe. Victor leaned against the cold basement wall. And what do you see when you look? What do you think of us? Zell was silent for a moment. Then confusion. Immense potential, but wasted. You know what you need to do, but you don't do it. What do we need to do? Love, cooperate, unite, but they choose the opposite. Divide, compete, destroy. Victor felt something tighten in his chest. Because it was true. He'd been teaching this for decades. Historical patterns repeating themselves. Civilizations falling because they ignored the signs. I taught about this, he said, his voice low. For 28 years, collective denial. How societies ignore what they don't want to see. How it leads to collapse. And nobody learned. Nobody wanted to learn. They wanted a diploma, not wisdom. Why did you stop teaching? Victor looked at his own hands, hands that had held chalk for nearly 3 decades, that had written on thousands of chalkboards. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of talking to walls, of seeing students memorizing for tests and forgetting everything afterwards, of realizing that history doesn't teach, it just repeats itself. So he gave up. It wasn't a question, it was a statement, and it hurt. Yes, Victor admitted, I gave up. I came to the mountains, away from people, away from disappointment. And did that solve it? Solved what's your pain, your frustration, your sense of failure? Victor remained silent because he didn't. He didn't solve it. He just hid it. You're doing alien therapy now. He tried to joke, but it came out bitter. I just watch. Humans do that. When hurt, they isolate themselves. They think solitude protects, but it only freezes the pain. And you, your kind, doesn't do that. We did a long time ago when we were young as a civilization. But we learned. What did you learn? That isolation is not protection. It is imprisonment. The words hit Victor like a punch because he knew. He had always known, but hearing them from a telepathic alien in a damp basement made it impossible to ignore. 3 days, Victor said, deliberately changing the subject. You said 3 days until rescue. Why so long? I need to repair the transmitter. Damaged components. It takes time. Can I help you? Do you understand warp drive technology and quantum communication? No. So? No, but you can keep me company. Talk, ask questions. Victor smiled slightly. Lonely alien wanting company. Ironic. I'm not lonely, just trapped temporarily. Welcome to the club, Victor said and stood up. You make yourself as comfortable as possible. Thank you for hiding, for not giving it away. I don't know why I did it, Victor admitted. Instinct maybe, or curiosity, or he paused. Or maybe I was tired of watching life go by and wanted to be part of something. So thanks for participating. And as Victor climbed the stairs, leaving Zell in the basement, he noticed something. For the first time in 3 years of self-imposed isolation, he didn't feel alone. Ironic, it took an alien to remember he was human. Second day, Victor woke up early, made coffee, and took an extra cup to the basement. Good morning, he came down the stairs. I brought coffee. I don't know if you're kind. Oh, Zell was working on something. Small components were scattered on the floor. Tools Victor didn't recognize. They seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Good morning, Victor. Thank you, but I don't drink coffee. Caffeine is toxic to me. Good to know. Don't offer coffee to the alien. Victor sat down. What are you doing repairing transmitter? Slow, but progressing. Victor watched Zell's hands, or what seemed like hands, manipulate components with impossible precision. Long fingers moving in patterns that almost looked like dancing. How much have you fixed? Maybe 40%. By tomorrow night, it should be functional. And then they come and get you. And that's it. End of story. To try. Victor drank his coffee in silence for a moment. Then can I ask more questions? Of course, that's why I offer time. Okay, yesterday you said that many civilizations observe Earth. How many exactly? It's hard to say the exact number, but tens directly, hundreds indirectly. Hundreds. Victor nearly spilled his coffee. Hundreds of alien civilizations know about us. Yes, Earth is known. Famous even. Famous for what? Because it's a paradox, an intelligent species that simultaneously creates incredible beauty and incomprehensible destruction. Victor Sud. So we're what cosmic reality TV. No more like case study. What happens when a species develops technology before wisdom? That's depressing. It's reality, but not permanent. It can change as choosing differently collectively. Victor thought back to decades of teaching history, trying to get students to see patterns, to make different choices. I tried that. It didn't work because he tried alone. Real change requires critical mass. How many, how many people need to choose differently before something changes? It's not a fixed number. It's a moment. When enough people wake up simultaneously, then tipping point happens. And are we close to that point? Zell paused in his work. He looked at Victor. Yes and no. There is potential, but there is also immense resistance. Resistance from whom? Governments, corporations, from them too. But mostly from ordinary people, from you, from me. When I was younger, resistance to what? The uncomfortable truth, the frightening change, the heavy responsibility. Victor felt something tighten. You're talking about denial. Your specialty as a teacher, right? It was. It taught about civilizations that denied signs of collapse. Mayans, Romans, Easter Island. They all saw signs. Maz. They all denied them until too late. In your current civilization, Victor laughed bitterly, doing exactly the same thing. Climate change, inequality, polarization. Signs everywhere, but most deny or ignore them. Why? Victor repeated. Because it's easier. Because change is hard. Because admitting a problem means having to do something about it. Exactly. And that applies to other things too. Something in the tone, even though it was telepathic, made Victor pause. Other things like what Zell returned to work, maybe tomorrow, when the transmitter is almost ready, when you're ready, ready for what? To hear a truth that can be disturbing. Victor felt curiosity flare. About what? About you, about contact. Try. Then tell me now. No, it's not ready yet. How do you know I'm not ready? Because you're still angry. Anger makes it difficult to listen. It distorts understanding. Victor opened his mouth to deny it, but stopped because Zell was right. There was anger, old deep anger at students who didn't learn, anger at a system that didn't change, anger at humanity that repeated mistakes. I'm working on my anger, he said defensively. I know, and it's progressing. So I hope one more day, Victor sighed. You're frustrating to aliens. I hear this often of other humans you observed. Yes, some few. How many humans know about you? Do they really know? More than the government admits, less than conspiracy theories claim. That's no answer. It's an honest answer. Numbers vary. Some know and speak out. Most don't believe. Some know and remain silent out of fear of choice. What about me? After you're gone, what do I do with it? Whatever you want. Speak, keep quiet. No one will believe you anyway. Why not? Because they don't want to believe it. It's more comfortable to think they're alone in the universe. Less scary. Victor thought about it. So even if I tell even in detail, people will deny it. Most will. Some may listen. Even fewer will believe it. And very few will act differently based on it. So what's the point? The point is to plant a seed. You don't control whether it sprouts, you just plant it. Victor remembered something he told himself to justify his retirement. Nobody learned. But what if some learned? What if the seeds you planted were still there dormant, waiting for the right moment? You make me think, Victor admitted. Good. Thinking is the first step to change. And second step, feel. Third, act. In that order generally. But every person is different. Victor finished his cold coffee. You said your civilization was young once like us. What changed? How did you evolve? Crisis big. It nearly destroyed us, and then we chose differently collectively. So it takes a catastrophe to change. It doesn't have to be, but it's often what leads to choice. Sufficient pain makes change less scary than the status quo. That's sad. It's standard. Across the galaxy, species evolve through pressure. What about us humans? Are we under enough pressure? Yes. But still choosing to deny rather than act. For how long? How long until it's too late? Zell stopped completely. He looked at Victor. I don't know. Nobody knows, but the window is narrowing. Victor felt a weight settle on his chest. And what can we do individually? Wake up. Choose truth over comfort. Love over fear. Connection over isolation. Collectively, same things, but en masse. What if we don't? Then I'll become a statistic. Another intelligent species that didn't evolve in time. How many? How many didn't make it? Many more than I care to count. Heavy silence. Victor looking at the alien working on the transmitter. An alien from a civilization that made it that evolved. Will you help if we're failing? Will you intervene? We can't. Rules. Each species chooses its own path. But they observe. Yes. We watch. We wait. We hope. And if we fail, you just watch. Yes, sadly. But yes, Victor felt renewed anger. That's cruel. It's respect for free will for autonomy. We are not saviors. We are witnesses. And tomorrow, what are you going to tell me tomorrow that is so disturbing? The truth about why we don't make open contact. Why we don't come out as they say. And when you know, you'll understand why anger needs to go first. Victor wanted to press, demand an answer now. But something in Zell's posture said, not yet. Patience. Okay, Victor stood up. Tomorrow then. And as Victor went upstairs, leaving Zell to work, he realized I was less angry than yesterday, less cynical, more curious, hopeful. Alien in the basement was doing something that 28 years of teaching had not accomplished, making him want to believe that change was possible. Third day, Victor didn't sleep well. His mind was spinning with everything Zell had said. Truth about why we don't do open contact. Conspiracy theories said government hides fear of panic control of information. But Zell hinted at something different, something more disturbing. Victor went down to the basement at 6:02 a.m. Zell was awake, or maybe he never slept, working on the transmitter. Good morning, Victor. You slept badly. It wasn't a question. Can you feel it? My sleep, I feel your agitation. Restless mind transmits strongly. Victor sat down. I couldn't stop thinking about what you're going to tell me today. Good. It means you are preparing yourself mentally or driving me crazy with curiosity. Zell made a sound, something Victor began to recognize as alien laughter, a low, almost musical vibration. It works too. Victor watched Zell's work. The transmitter now looked different, more complete, glowing faintly. It's almost ready. Yes, tonight I can signal. Tomorrow morning my arrivals will arrive. So this is our last real conversation. Try. Victor felt something strange. Sadness for an alien he'd met just 3 days ago. I'm going to miss you. Is that weird to say? No, I will too. You are interesting. Interesting, how typical of his kind. Intelligent but in denial. Compassionate but isolated. Disillusioned but still hopeful underneath. Do you do psychological analysis too, I observe? That's what I do. Victor took a deep breath. Okay, I'm ready. Tell me, why don't you make open contact? Why don't you land at the White House or the UN and say, we're here, Zell, stop working? He turned completely to Victor. Because we've already tried. Victor blinked. What? Multiple times, different decades, different approaches. They all failed. How, when? Why don't I know that? You know, you just didn't connect the dots. Or you did but accepted the official explanation. Give me examples. 1952. Washington, D.C. Ships over the Capitol seen by thousands. Film photographed. Victor remembered lights of Washington. I taught that government said they were temperature inversions. Something like that. They weren't. It was us trying to show our presence in a non-threatening way and panic. The government denied it. The media ridiculed it. The population accepted the denial because it was more comfortable than the truth. Victor felt something cold run down his spine. You were really there. Yes, in other moments. 1947, Roswell. Real spaceship, real beings. Government recovered. I know that everyone knows theories about Roswell. These aren't theories, they're facts. But look what happened. The government denied it. They made up a story about a weather balloon, and the majority accepted it, but many didn't accept it. There have been conspiracy theories for decades. Yes. And what did they do with them? Victor paused. They ridiculed them. They marginalized them. They called them crazy. Because it was easier than facing the truth, but the government hid it, covered it up, yes. But why? To maintain control, to avoid panic. Two, to give people exactly what they wanted. Denial. Victor was silent. Processing. Victor, think about it. If the government really wanted to completely hide it, they would have destroyed all the evidence, killed witnesses. But they didn't. They made some, not all, because a cover-up doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be convenient. It provides a plausible excuse for those who want to believe it. Wait, Victor stood up. Are you saying that people want it covered up unconsciously? Yes, that doesn't make sense. Do think like a teacher. What happens when you tell students the uncomfortable truth? Victor thought, they resist, they deny, they look for ways to invalidate. And what happens when you give a comfortable explanation, even if it's false? They accept easily, gratefully. Exactly. Now apply this to a planetary scale. Victor sat up slowly, his mind connecting dots he had resisted seeing for decades. Are you saying that governments cover up because the population subconsciously asks for them to cover up that? But how How does the population ask for this through choices, elections, media consumption, reactions to revelations? When someone tries to reveal alien truth, what happens? Victor thought they are ridiculed. They lose credibility, career reputation. And who does this government, low number media, society, ordinary people mocking exactly? Society punishes those who speak uncomfortable truths. It rewards those who maintain comfort. But Victor felt internal resistance. But many people want to know. They protest for disclosure. They say they want to, but when evidence appears, what do? Some believe, and the majority that determines the course of society, Victor thought honestly ignore it or accept the official explanation or ridicule it. Yes, because knowing, really knowing means changing. Changing your worldview, changing your priorities, changing your life, and change is scary. Victor held his head in his hands. So you're saying you don't make open contact because we don't want to, we really don't want to. Most don't want to deep down subconsciously. But why wouldn't we want to know the truth about life in the universe? Because it means they are not special, not unique, not the center of creation. Because it means that the universe is bigger and more complex than religion taught. Because it means they need to grow, evolve, unite as a species, and that requires letting go of old certainties. Victor remains silent, feeling the weight of every word. And governments, church, media, are they part of this? Yes, but not as evil conspirators, as demand providers. Government covers up because citizens elect leaders who promise normality. Church distorts because believers seek churches that give simple answers. Media ridicules because audience clicks on entertainment, not serious information. Each institution simply responds to what the masses want, consciously or not. Victor felt the world crumbling and rebuilding differently. So it's not their fault. It's ours, all of us. Not blame, responsibility. Big difference. As guilt paralyzes, responsibility empowers. Because if the problem is ours, so is the solution. Victor looked at Zell, an alien who in 3 days had turned his understanding upside down. What do we do then? How do we change this? Individuals change first, then the collective follows. How do they change? Choosing truth over comfort, questioning your own denials. Stop blaming them and start asking, what am I denying? Victor thought about his own life, about self-imposed isolation, about giving up teaching. I denied that I could still make a difference. Try, and when enough, stop denying it, so we're ready for real contact. Open, no cover-up, because there will be no demand for cover-up. How long, I don't know. It could be years, generations, or it could be quick if the right moment comes. Victor sat there processing everything. The most disturbing revelation was not that aliens existed. It was that they were always here trying to contact, and humanity collectively was choosing not to see. Victor was silent for a long time. Zell returned to work on the transmitter, giving him space to process. Finally, Victor spoke. So every time someone sees a UFO and is ridiculed, every time a witness is discredited, every time evidence is explained away as a weather balloon or Venus or an optical illusion, it's not just the government covering up, it's the entire society collaborating in the denial because it's easier to try. Victor stood up and began pacing the small basement. But that means that each one of us is responsible. Every time we scoffed at conspiracy theorists, every time we accepted official explanations without question, every time we chose comfort over truth. Yes, you vote with actions. With attention, with daily choices, shall we vote? Yes, every click, every political vote, every conversation, every choice to believe or deny. When you watch news that ridicules sightings and don't turn off, you vote for more of it. When you elect a politician who promises to get back to normal instead of facing difficult truths, you vote for denial. When you go to a church that gives simple answers instead of seeking the truth, you vote for limitation. Victor stopped. So you're saying that even religious institutions, they distort because we ask them to? Yes. Churches that teach complexity, mystery, we don't know everything, lose members. Churches that promise absolute answers, clear, good versus evil, guaranteed salvation, grow. Why? Because people seek certainty, comfort, not truth. But many people of faith are genuine sincere. Yes, and many seek truth honestly, but the masses seek comfort. And institutions, government, church media simply provide what the masses demand. Victor felt something uncomfortable growing because he was seeing his own life in it. I did that, he said quietly. As a teacher, I gave simple answers because students wanted them. Easy grades, memorized content, no critical thinking. And when did you try to give more? They resisted. They complained. Bad reviews, administration pressured to make things easier. So you had a choice. Fight the system or adapt. And I adapted for years until I couldn't anymore. Until I burned out completely. And then isolate me. Blame the system. Blame the students. Blame society. But he didn't ask himself, how did I contribute to this? Victor felt tears burning. No, I didn't ask, because it was easier to be a victim than to be responsible. Exactly. Same pattern, different scale. Victor sat back down, legs weak. So what you're saying is that there are no villains. There's no evil conspiracy. There's a cover-up. There's manipulation. There's an interest in maintaining power, but it works only because the masses allow it. Because the masses prefer comfortable denial to uncomfortable truth. What if the masses changed? What if the majority really wanted the truth? Then a cover-up would become impossible because institutions follow demand. A politician who hides the truth would lose an election to someone who reveals it. A church that limits itself would lose its followers to those who expand. Media that ridicules would lose audience to those who seriously investigate. But that requires millions to change simultaneously, not simultaneously, gradually until critical mass is reached. And how much longer? Zell stopped completely. He looked at Victor. I don't know, but it's closer than it was. Each person who awakens speeds up the process. Awakening from what? Of one's own denial, of one's own complicity, of one's own responsibility. When you stop blaming government, elite them, and start asking, how do I deny the truth? You wake up. When you choose truth, even if it's uncomfortable, you vote for change. When you question your own certainties, you open the door to evolution. Victor wiped his face with his hands. Why is that so hard to hear? Because it destroys the victim narrative. It's much more comfortable to be the victim of a conspiracy than to admit complicity. And I was an accomplice of denial, of isolation, of giving up. Yes, but the past doesn't define the future. You can choose differently now, as returning not to isolation, but to participation, not with anger, but with compassion, not with blame, but with teaching. Teach what? What it has always taught: patterns of denial. But now, including, what are we denying now collectively, individually? Victor thought, what if they ask me about aliens, about you? Tell it or not, it doesn't matter. No one will believe it anyway, but it might plant seeds of questioning. Why is it so hard to believe? What would we lose if it were true? How does denial protect and limit us? Philosophy, not facts. Facts rarely change minds. Questions often change minds. Victor remained silent, taking it all in. So the message is, the ball is in our court. It always has been, to try. You don't make open contact because we are not ready, and we are not ready because we choose not to be. Exactly. And when we're ready, then they won't have to wait for us. They will have already evolved beyond the need for external validation. But yes, we will appear because there will be no more reason to hide when there is no more demand for hiding. Victor stood up and walked over to where Zell was working. He looked at the nearly complete transmitter. When you're gone and I'm left here with all this, what do I do? What to choose? You can isolate yourself again, blame the world, or you can participate, plant seeds, question your own denials, and help others question theirs. What if I fail? What if no one listens? Then you will still have lived more truthfully than before, and that always holds true. Victor held out his hand, a human gesture. Zell looked then, held out his own hand. 3 long fingers touching Victor's 5 fingers. Thank you, Victor said, for breaking my denials, for showing me responsibility. Thank you for hiding, for listening, for being willing to wake up. This will change everything for me. I hope so, but change depends on you, not me. And in that impossible handshake, human and alien in the dank basement, Victor felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not cynicism, not resignation, but purpose. Renewed. Real. The most disturbing revelation wasn't about government conspiracy. It was about collective complicity, about chosen denial, about ignored responsibility. And paradoxically, this was more hopeful than conspiracy. Because if the problem was theirs, the solution was out of their control. But was the problem ours? The solution was also in our hands. That night, Victor sat on the porch while Zell finished the transmitter in the basement. Starry sky, millions of points of light. And now Victor knew. He wasn't looking at nothing. He was looking at his neighborhood. Hundreds of civilizations watching, waiting, cheering, hoping humans would stop denying and start seeing. Around midnight, he felt a telepathic presence. It's done, the signal has been sent. My men arrive at dawn. Victor descended to the basement one last time. Zell stood there, his transmitter glowing softly, emitting a pulse that Victor felt more than heard. So that's it. End of the strangest 3 days of my life and the beginning of something new. If you choose, I'm thinking. Victor leaned against the wall about what I said about going back teaching again. And I'm afraid of failing again, of burning again. Valid fear, but fear is no reason not to try. Easy for you to say. It's not. My species also has fears. It also fails. The difference is that we learn to continue despite fear. Victor smiled. You'd make a good teacher. I am an observer. Different but related. Comfortable silence. Then Victor asked, will I see you again someday? Unlikely but possible. The universe is strange like that. What if humans evolve? What if we actually reach critical mass? Will you be there when we make open contact? Maybe if he's still alive, if he's appointed, but someone of my kind will be. We promise to observe until the conclusion. Conclusion being evolution or extinction. We hope the former. Victor thought back to decades of teaching the history of extinct civilizations. The Mayans, the Romans, Easter Island. They all denied the signs until too late. We can do it differently, he said, mostly to himself. We have to do it differently. Yes, and it starts with individuals like you choosing differently. No pressure then, Victor laughed nervously. It's not just you. Millions are already awakening, questioning, choosing truth. You're just one more, but each one matters. Victor looked at Zell, an impossible creature who had changed everything in 3 days. I'll call my daughter. Good. Let's talk. Really talk. For the first time in years, even better. And I'll look into volunteering at the library or community center. Teaching again, not at school, but teaching. Why change, Victor? Thought. Because you're right, I isolated myself. I denied that I could still make a difference. And that was my own denial, my own personal cover-up. Exactly. And if I can change that, my personal denial, maybe it will help others change theirs. One at a time. This is how critical mass is built. Light began to appear outside. Not sunrise, different bluish soft. They arrived. Victor felt a tightness in his chest. Already, yes, I need to go. They went upstairs together for the last time. They walked through the kitchen. They went out into the backyard. There was something there. Not exactly a ship, more like distortion in the air, space folding in on itself. Victor couldn't focus on her directly, eyes sliding, our technology difficult for human perception to process. I understand. Victor didn't understand, but he accepted. Zell turned to him for the last time. Victor Hayes, thank you for hiding, for listening, for waking up. Thank you for everything, for breaking my denials, for showing me that I can still make a difference. He always could. He just forgot for a while. I'll remember now. Good. Zell began walking toward the distortion. He stopped. He looked back. Victor, one last thing to try. When you teach again, when you plant seeds, remember you won't see them all sprout. Some take years, decades, generations. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worth it. It just means that patience is part of the process. Victor felt tears. I'll remember. And when you doubt, when you think nothing changes, remember me. Remember that someone from a civilization that evolved believes that you can too. I will remember. And Zell disappeared into the distortion, which immediately began to shrink, collapse. Within seconds, it was completely gone. Empty sky, only stars. Victor stood in the yard for a long time. The sun was really starting to rise now. Then he went in. He picked up the phone. He looked at a number he hadn't dialed in months. Sarah, your daughter. Fingers trembling, he dialed. Hello, sleepy voice. Surprise, Sarah, it's Dad. I know it's early, but can I call you later to talk, really talk, silence? Then Dad, are you okay? I am. For the first time in a long time, I am. And I want to fix things. If you'll let me. Long pause. Victor almost gave up then. Okay, call me at 2 p.m. I'll be free. I'll call, I promise. Good to try. You look different. What happened? Victor looked out the window to the sky where the impossible ship had disappeared minutes ago. I had a visitor who made me see things differently. Visitor, it's a long story. I'll tell you another day. Today, I just want to hear about you, about your life, things I missed by being isolated. Okay, Dad. Okay, I'll talk to you at 2 p.m. Thank you, Sarah, for giving me a chance. I love you, Dad. Victor closed his eyes. When was the last time he heard that I love you too? See you later. He hung up. He sat at the kitchen table. Coffee was getting cold. Sunlight filled the room, and for the first time in 3 years, Victor Hayes didn't feel alone. Not because I had company, but because I had a purpose. Reconnect with my daughter. Return to teaching. Plant seeds of inquiry. I wouldn't save the world. I wouldn't change everything alone. But it was his part, his responsibility, his choice. And choice he now understood was where it all began. 2 weeks later, Victor was at the Asheville Public Library talking to the community programs coordinator. So you want to volunteer? Margaret, a woman in her 60s, looked at his profile. Retired history teacher, 28 years of experience. Yes, I thought about maybe a discussion group about history, but not traditional, non-traditional. How Victor hesitated. How to explain without sounding crazy. Focus on patterns on how civilizations have denied signs of trouble and connect with the present. Ask, what are we denying now collectively and individually? Margaret raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Half philosophy, half history. Exactly. And you think people will come to be challenged like that? Victor thought about Zell in 3 days. That changed everything. I don't know, maybe not, but I have to try. Plant a seed even if it doesn't sprout right away. Margaret smiled. I like that. Okay, you can use room B on Wednesday nights. Few hours, no charge. See how many show up. Thank you. Thank you very much. One thing, Professor Hayes. Try. Why now? Why come back after 3 years of isolation? Victor looked out the library window. Blue sky, white clouds, seemingly normal. But now he knew there was more, much more hidden in plain sight because they chose not to see it, because I realized that isolation was my own form of denial. And if I want others to stop denying, I have to stop first. Margaret nodded, satisfied. See you next Wednesday then. First session. Victor arrived at 6 p.m. He arranged chairs in a circle and prepared some questions on the whiteboard. He waited. 6 to 15 p.m. Nobody. 6:30 p.m. The door opened. A young man, perhaps 30, entered hesitantly. Is this the history discussion group? Yes, yes. Come in. I'm Victor Tom. They shook hands. I saw the poster. I was curious. 2 minutes later, a woman in her 50s walked in, then an elderly couple, then three more people, seven in total. It wasn't a crowd, but it was a beginning. Good evening, everyone. Victor began. Thank you for coming. I know there are a million things you could be doing on a Wednesday night. Light laughter. This isn't a traditional history group. I won't give you dates and facts to memorize. I'll ask questions, uncomfortable questions, and we'll explore together. First question, Victor wrote on the board. What are we denying? Silence. People exchanging glances. I'll give you some context, Victor continued. Easter Island, incredible civilization. They built monumental statues, but they destroyed forests in the process. They saw resources running out, and they denied it. They cut down every last tree knowing there wouldn't be any more. Why deny the obvious? Tom held up his hand. Because admitting it meant changing, and change was scarier than collapse. Exactly. Victor felt old energy returning, energy to teach, to connect. Collapse was the abstract future. Change was the concrete present. So they denied the future to avoid present change. And us? A woman of 50, Linda asked, do we do that too? What do you think? Silence. Then an elderly couple, George and Martha, spoke. Climate change, George said. We see signs, data, but we carry on as usual because change requires sacrifice. Exactly, Victor Roberto. Climate change in the board. What else? Inequality. Tom said, it grows every year, but we elect the same people. Why does admitting a problem mean having to do something about it? Sim continue. For 2 hours they talked, they explored, they questioned, not about aliens, not about conspiracy, about basic human denial, about daily choices, about personal and collective responsibility. In the end, Linda approached Professor Hayes. That was different. Good but uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is a sign of growth. I'll be back next week, and I'll bring a friend. Great. Thanks for coming. One by one they left. Tom was last. Professor, can I ask a personal question? Of course. What changed for you? You talked about denying isolation, but what made you see it? Victor thought. How could he answer without mentioning Zell? I had an encounter with a different perspective. Someone from the outside showed me patterns that I didn't see from the inside. Therapist. Victor smiled. Something like that. Weeks turned into months. The group grew. 7 people became 15, then 25. Not a crowd, but enough. And Victor noticed something. People started changing themselves. Linda stopped complaining about the government and started volunteering locally. Tom started a blog about personal sustainability. George and Martha organized a climate action group in the neighborhood. Small changes, individual, but real, one at a time. Victor remembered Zell's words. This is how critical mass is built. 6 months after meeting Zell, Victor was having dinner with Sarah, first time in person in 2 years. You're different, Dad. She said, studying him, more present. I'm present for the first time in years. What changed? That visitor you mentioned. Victor cut meat, considering how much to count. Someone showed me that I was in denial that I could still make a difference, in denial of responsibility for my own life. And when I stopped denying, everything changed. Who was it? That someone, it doesn't matter who, it matters what he showed me. Sarah took his hand. I'm happy you look alive again. I am, and I'm sorry for lost years, for isolation, for... No, Dad, I'm not sorry for the past. I'm sorry for wasting the present, regretting the past. You're here now, that's what matters. Victor squeezed her hand, tears burning. She understood without me explaining. She already understood. One night, Victor was on the balcony, the same place where he saw helicopters 6 months ago, looking at the stars, and he felt something. Not a voice, not a presence, but knowledge certainty. Zell is watching, observing, cheering. Hundreds of civilizations watching Earth, waiting for humans to awaken. And Victor, a retired teacher who had almost given up, was doing his part. Small, limited, but real. 25 people in a discussion group wouldn't save the world, but 25 people questioning their own denials, changing their own lives, influencing others. This was a seed planted growing. And if he was doing this, how many others were doing it too? In how many cities, countries, continents? Critical mass doesn't happen suddenly. Victor thought it's built slowly, one person at a time, choosing truth over comfort, responsibility over guilt, participation over isolation. And when enough people choose this, maybe then they wouldn't need aliens showing up because they would have already evolved beyond the need for external validation. But it would be a nice bonus when it happened. Victor smiled at the stars. Thank you, Zell, for waking me up, for showing me that I can still plant seeds. No answer. Of course not. But it wasn't necessary either, because the job was now his. Sarah's, Linda's, Tom's, George's, Martha's, of each person choosing to awaken. And that finally was hopeful. A year after meeting Zell, Victor was preparing a new session when he received an email from a former student from 15 years ago. Professor Hayes, I don't know if you remember me. I had a class with you in 2010. You taught about collective denial, about how civilizations ignore signals. At the time, I memorized it for a test and forgot it. But something remained, a seed that the Lord planted. And recently, with everything going on in the world, I remembered and I understood I'm making a difference now, small, local, but real. Thank you for planting the seed, even if it took 15 years for it to sprout. Marcus, Victor read the email 3 times, tears streaming down his face. Zell was right. You don't see every seed sprout. Some take years, decades, but that doesn't mean they weren't worth it. And in that moment, Victor completely understood. It wasn't about seeing immediate results. It was about planting, trusting, continuing. Because real change that matters is built slowly. One individual, one choice, one seed at a time. Final message. The story of Victor Hayes confronts us with a truth more disturbing than any conspiracy theory. It's not their fault. It's ours. Aliens don't make open contact, not because the government hides it, not because they're afraid of us, but because we collectively don't want to. Subconsciously, deep down, we choose denial over truth because change is scarier than ignorance. And this applies not just to aliens, but to everything. Climate change. We see signs. We deny it because admitting it requires change. Inequality. We see the numbers. We deny them because doing something requires sacrifice. Corruption. We see evidence. We deny it because questioning the system is uncomfortable. Pattern after pattern after pattern. And then we blame government, elite media, them. When the truth is these institutions only provide what we ask for through our daily choices. Every vote for a politician who promises to return to normal. Vote for denial. Every click on sensationalist news instead of serious investigation. Vote for entertainment over truth. It's not a malevolent conspiracy of a few. It's the unconscious complicity of many. And that paradoxically is hopeful. Why? Because if the problem were theirs, the solution would be beyond our control. But is it ours problem? The solution is also in our hands. Every person who stops blaming them and asks, how do I deny truth and person awakening? Every individual who chooses real discomfort over the comfort of ignorance. Vote for evolution. Each person who leaves isolation, physical or mental, and participates French seed planted. And when enough do this critical mass turning point collective transformation. It doesn't have to be all of them, just enough at the right time. Victor almost lost it. 3 years isolated, blaming the world, denying that he could still make a difference. It took an impossible alien encounter to wake up. But you don't need aliens in the basement. It just needs brutal honesty. What am I denying? Where do you choose comfort over truth? isolation over participation, guilt over responsibility. Not on a global scale in you, your life, your choices, because global change starts individually, and it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be heroic. Call distant relatives, volunteer locally, question your own beliefs, choose serious media over sensationalist ones. Vote based on real policies, not comfortable promises. Small choices daily accumulated. This builds critical mass. And when we reach it, maybe then aliens won't need to hide anymore because there will be no more demand for hiding. But even if that never happens, even if open contact never occurs, you will still have lived with more truth, more purpose, more connection. And that always holds true. If this story has awakened something in you, if you have recognized your own denials, if you are ready to stop blaming and start living responsibly, we have something that can deepen this journey of awakening, reconnecting with your divine essence. This book is for those who are tired of narratives that make them victims, for those who want to discover the real power that has always resided within them, not power over others, but the power to create their own reality through conscious choices. Inside, you will discover how to identify and dissolve your own denials, unconscious patterns that keep you stuck, practices to awaken creative consciousness. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are a co-creator of them. How to reconnect with inner wisdom beyond external doctrines and limiting authorities. Real tools for personal transformation, which naturally influence collective. The path back to the divine essence, not through external salvation, but internal awakening. If you, like Victor, are ready to come out of isolation, denial, and consciously participate in your own evolution and that of humanity, the book is available in the first comment pinned here below the video. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Every week, we bring you stories that challenge comfortable narratives, expose collective denials, and point to personal responsibility that empowers rather than paralyzes. Leave in the comments, what's your personal denial? What are you avoiding seeing doing? Are you ready to stop blaming them and take responsibility? How has this story changed your perspective? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Want to support this channel and help these messages reach more people? Ready to awaken, become a member. That way you help keep this channel alive, or leave your contribution with "Thank you so much." Each support allows you to continue planting seeds. Victor hid the alien for 3 days and discovered that the most disturbing truth wasn't about a government conspiracy. It was about the mirror, about seeing our collective reflection and realizing we don't like what we see. So we break the mirror instead of changing the reflection. Aliens don't contact us because we are like children covering our eyes and saying, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. It's that we collectively cover our eyes. Billions of hands over billions of eyes. And we call this normality. Victor spent 28 years trying to remove hands from students' eyes to show patterns to reveal denials. And when it didn't work, he covered his eyes. He isolated himself. He gave up. It took being from another civilization, a civilization that removed its hands and evolved to show it's not about removing everyone's hands. It's about removing yours first. And when do you do that? When do you actually see you can no longer ignore it? You can no longer blame it. You can no longer wait for someone to fix it because you realize you are that someone. Always have been, always will be. Critical mass is not a magic number of people awake. It is time when enough individuals stop waiting for critical mass and become it. A retired teacher returning to teaching. A mother questioning her children's school. An employee reporting corruption even though it risks his job. A citizen voting conscience over convenience. 1,000 little acts of courage. 1,000,000 little truths. 1,000,000,000 little choices accumulated. Built until the day we no longer need aliens telling us we're ready because we simply will be. And then, and only then, they show up. Not as saviors, as neighbors who've always been waiting for us to be mature enough for real conversation. But until then, the work is ours. The choice is ours. The responsibility is ours. And that scary as it is also more liberating than any conspiracy because it means that the future is not in their hands. It's in yours. It always has been. What are you going to do with it?